Hello everyone, and welcome back to Intoxicus Flanging. My name's Graham, and as always, I hope you all remembered to bring a towel. And today I hope you all remember to bring your spoiler towels because this daily flange is full of spoilers. So, just to be a bit more specific, if you have not played as far as the flashback that transitions between day 1 and day 2, turn this video off. Well, hit stop, go to the description, click the link to the daily flange that is spoiler free, that talks more about the controversy, and start out with that, get as far as you need to into the game that I won't be spoiling anything, and then flange up this video. And also on that note, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification so you can stay up to date with all the constantly improving content from Intoxicus Flanging. So yeah, let's get flanging here. So last warning, spoilers are coming right now. My biggest issue with the storytelling is not that they killed Joel, it's how they went about doing it. And we're going to get into that shortly here. I just wanted to throw out like the main core premise of this video, but before we get into stuff that's kind of inherently negative because, you know, we're breaking down things that I think are wrong, I do want to talk about some of the positive things. First and foremost, the character interaction is top fucking. I'm blown away by how good the character interaction is. And truly, The Last of Us 1 and 2 are both character-driven games. They're not narrative-driven, and we'll touch on that. And it's that character interaction that really drives everything. It's what keeps everyone hanging in there. It's what keeps me hanging in there. And, you know, I've heard people say The Last of Us is narrative-driven. Not really. It's actually character-driven. And like I said, we're going to talk about that later, but like just playing Last of Us 2, and it reminds me of how character-driven Last of Us 1 was, where the real core of the game is these character interactions while you're playing through, where it's just these like random interactions and stuff, or semi-random interactions, or just in general, all the character interactions. Excellently scripted, excellently voice acted, excellently animated, just everything about the character interactions just fucking awesome. The rest of the story, besides Joel's unfortunate murder and more how that went down, I'm liking. Like, even though I think they could have done things better, what they are flanging, they're doing pretty good at, except for that one thing that I take exception to and I think is probably really the problem. Other things that are great, the gameplay, they fixed up a lot of the frustrating aspects about the Last of Us 1 gameplay, even though I've had a couple moments where I've been like, how the fuck did that guy detect me? But whatever. That could also be me not quite understanding the stealth system, potentially. Anyways, nothing a big serious concern. Just little quirks, little flaws, nothing serious. The way they structured the progress, at least so far, with this kind of like semi-open world approach, where like you get little sections of open world and then they're linked together in a very logical manner that really makes sense. Really liking that. The pacing, aside from the murder of Joel, excellent. There's so many things, except for how they went about murdering Joel, that I can say so many good things about this. Just, you know, the whole guitar thing with Ellie, the relationship between Ellie and Dina, Dina's character. I forget the name of Dina's ex-boyfriend, that character. I really, that guy was he was a fun character. I liked him. And also they're very real characters. Like, I feel like these can easily be real people. And that's kind of the thing with video games, is sometimes you get characterization that's not so plausible, but does make sense within the game world. So I do appreciate and very much enjoy the very realistic, plausible characterization. Now that I've spoken about some more positive things, and it's like, just before I move on, like, you know, if I was to give this game a number based on just what I've played so far, I'd give it like a 9, maybe even a 9.5, but not a 10. Anyways, you know, that kind of stuff's a bit more opinion based, so I won't say much more. It's just, you know, other than that one thing, and it's not the thing itself, it's how they went about it, it's a really great game. And I think it's just how they went about that one thing that's really fucking with people. And because people don't understand storytelling, they don't understand what's really fucking with them and really like making things feel not so good. And that's the thing. A lot of the audience is just going to be like, this makes me feel not good about what happened. And then you get a whole lot of emotional reactions because they're like, I feel not good. And then they express that emotionality. And then some people feel that stronger than others. Then maybe political bias gets wrapped up in that too. And, the whole, I'm bisexual. I'd prefer to be a woman if the type of transition I want were scientifically available right now. Just science needs more time to provide the kind of transition I would prefer. But that's not the point. The point is, from that perspective, there is some political pandering. They write it well and tell the story well, but I'll just straight up say I don't, or how to phrase that. I'm concerned that the reason they chose Ellie's sexuality is not necessarily because it made sense for the story or the character, but because of more political reasons. But having that feeling or thought about it, they still execute it very, very well. And even if it was intended more as like, oh, okay, Neil Druckmann's like, okay, I'll make her a lesbian to try and like, hook in, LGBTQ or whatever. I feel like the reasoning behind it was more like, oh, let's get like, let's be LGBTQ friendly instead of being like, oh, this is just the authentic story that came out. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do get that kind of a feeling, but I don't think that's really the issue. I think people who having emotional reactions, who are a little bit sensitive to that kind of stuff, they latch onto that, even though what's actually really fucking with them is other stuff. And then I do have to mention the Nate the Hate podcast with MVG. I'll do my best to remember to link that in the description. Hopefully I won't forget that. I'm going to do my best to remember. Really excellent. Definitely recommend watching that too. They also brought up how the spoilers shaded things, and also the way the spoilers were presented, put a certain spin on thing. I still haven't even looked at the spoilers. I'm not looking at the spoilers and how that came out until I'm done the game, because I don't want anything spoiled. And also they mentioned like, people's perspectives who are spoiled versus unspoiled going into it might be a big factor in who's upset and who's not. So, there's some variables that might bring up various emotional reactions that kind of have people just not actually realizing what's really bugging them. And this is speculation. Just, I gotta say that straight up. This is speculative. I can't say this for certain. This is my speculation based on my education and information and all that stuff. Maybe even a bit of bias thrown in just because I'm just as human as everyone. But, excuse me. Yeah, the point is that I question if people understand what is actually upsetting about this. And I really think it's really how Joel was murdered. And I did touch on this in the Daily Flange, but I was very vague about that, so I'm going to be more specific now. I think they disrespected Joel as a character. I think they used Joel as a tool to manipulate our emotions and set up Ellie's motivations. And I think people sniffed that out, and it was too obvious and too transparent, and they went too hard on that too fast. And that's really why people are upset. But because there's not a widespread understanding of storytelling, I don't think people understand that's actually what's fucking with them. So then they don't really have that kind of storytelling awareness or even self-awareness, so they wind up taking their fucked up feelings about how Joel was killed and then projecting all sorts of bias or preconceived notions upon it, and then we get a whole bunch of weird toxic dichotomous extremes on both ends, messiness that makes it hard to have a rational conversation. And that is kind of the point of this video, is to try and have more of a rational conversation about the storytelling, what went wrong with it, and also can't speak right now. What went right? Oh, my mouth sometimes. Mouth and brain just sometimes are like, anyways. So we are focusing more on what went wrong, but what was done right? I should rephrase that. What was done right is going to pop up too. So okay, we got to backtrack a little bit to help understand, from my perspective of being an aspiring science fiction writer who's admittedly kind of slacked off and actually writing science fiction for the most part. You know, I kind of started one short story and Resistance and bullshit, and I got to get over and just start writing science fiction. Anyways, the point is, The Last of Us 2 and The Last of Us are actually a science fiction story, but most people won't think about it that way. But because of the cordyceps, the actual legitimate plausible science behind the cordyceps viral made the same mistake as a character in the game calling it a virus. It's fungus, not a virus, fungal. Anyways, the fungal infection of cordyceps mutating to be able to infect humans and basically create a zombie apocalypse, insanely scientifically plausible. I mean, for that to actually happen, a lot of crazy shit would have to go down with the cordyceps mutation to be able to do that. It almost have to require human intervention to take to that level. But you know, we're not here to talk about the science of Last of Us 2. That's going to be an in-game science video later. But it does bear mentioning only because it means that truly The Last of Us 2 is a soft science fiction story. And this is important because there's a thing that happened with the meta, mostly of science fiction, but it rippled through and affected the meta of all TV and movie writing, as far as I can tell. And there's become this tropish cliche thing that's occurred since the Battlestar Galactica series remake, where they created this meta, as far as I'm aware, where they just did like crazy dramatic things that no one else was doing. They ramped up storytelling to a whole new level, and then everyone tried to do what they do. A lot of people with great success: Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones, etc., etc., etc. There's a ton that learned from Battlestar Galactica what they did with their meta, and then applied it to their own storytelling, and it's, I think, as a whole, improved storytelling. But there are many cases where they take this idea and just go way too far with it, and it effectively becomes shock for shock's sake. And that's the problem with Joel's murder, is not that he got murdered, is how it happened. And I saw that coming. I didn't need that spoiled. I saw that coming in the first game. I was like, he's going to die in the second one. Or he's going to die in between the first and second, and then they explain that later. But it's like, it is just writing on the wall to me. Joel will die. And there's reasons. You can't keep his character around for a second game without that second game just feeling like the same as The Last of Us 1 with better graphics in a different location. If you kept Joel, that's pretty much what you'd get, and it wouldn't work so well. It wouldn't be nearly as good as a game, because you'd be like, we've already been here, done that. We know Joel. We understand his pain. What we don't understand is how he's changed and grown as a human being between the two games, and that's something they fucked up on. And so to start tying this all together, so basically with Joel's murder, they rushed it, they did it too fast, they did it too soon, they didn't build it up enough in the right way, and it came off as just shock for shock's sake and a manipulation of the audience, and a manipulation of the audience's emotion. And yeah, that is storytelling. You're supposed to be manipulating the audience's emotions. That's the fucking point. But they're not supposed to realize what you're doing while you're doing it. And that's the problem, is it's too obvious. I can't think of the word, but it's like, I think people sniffed it out, what they were up to with that, and they're like, okay, yeah, you did that just to shock us, so we'll be upset, and then Ellie will have an emotional motivation that's super strong to go on this crazy revenge mission, and it just, that whole premise comes off as a little bit cliche. And maybe there's stuff in the later game that redeems that. That's very possible. I haven't gotten there, but I think regardless of how much they do or do not redeem from their early mistakes in later storytelling, they're already doing things that are make up for something I'm going to criticize, but I think they could have done it better in a way that would have been harder to criticize. So with Joel's murder, they capture him. I do like a lot how they got that there, where they kind of meet randomly. There's a whole bunch of cordyceps zombies coming at them, so they have to work together a little bit, even though they're enemies. But Joel doesn't realize they're enemies. But Abby's like, oh man, I can't wait to kill him once we're done with these zombies. I only need him alive as long as he can help me kill zombies to the point that I can murder him after, which is pretty fucked up. But they didn't go far enough with that. They should have stretched that out longer. So it was this like fucked up thing of like they're stuck together, but Abby doesn't want to give away why she's there and what's going on. Now she's dealing with Joel, but she can't kill him like just right there, right away because of the cordyceps zombies, and maybe there might be some other factors, like they want to bring him back to Seattle or something. So like there's just so much potential to just do so much better and so much more and add so much more nuance and gray area and ethical conundrums and questioning, and they just could have made it so much more interesting is my thought. And just whacking him in the golf club like that is just kind of fucking lame in my opinion. I think Joel could have also had a better death that was more fitting of his character, and that's one of the reasons why I say they disrespected characters, disrespected the audience, and not heavily so, but they did, and they did in such a way that it detracts from the overall storytelling and their overall game, and not necessarily that much. And I wouldn't necessarily have so much to say about it if it hadn't become so controversial for the reasons it did. But, for me as a storyteller, this is something where, or a person who wants to be a storyteller but hasn't engaged in that very much at all yet, but has been studying storytelling as much as possible to help build up to getting over my resistance to go actually write science fiction. It just seems so plainly obvious to me how this could have been done better, just so there's, give us a couple more hours of this whole setup thing, give it some more time, give it time to breathe, give it time to be fleshed out and make more sense, give us some more hints as to the villain's motivations. Like, you don't got to tell us everything, but give us some fucking hints. Like, we don't know anything other than, there's a mention of Joel was a smuggler. And they called him a smuggler. So it's like, my thought is maybe Joel smuggled something that wound up in like Abby's daughter or son or husband or wife or whatever. Someone close to Abby probably got infected directly because of Joel's actions, or maybe even inaction, that Joel probably felt was ethically justified at the time. This is speculation. I don't know what's going to be revealed yet. Do not spoil that for me in the comments. That just occurred to me. If anyone spoils anything in the comments, you are banned from my shit for life. Don't. Anyways, that aside, I should have said that in the beginning. But I'm not done the game. Don't spoil past the point I specified. So I don't mean to be overly harsh about that, but seriously, don't fucking spoil past chapter 1 for me in the description. I'll make it known when I'm past when you can spoil past chapter, when you can spoil the end of the game for me. But please be respectful of that, please. It'd be very not cool. Yeah. So, anyways, I should have thrown that in the beginning. Just occurred to me now. I'll see if I can edit something in, maybe. Anyways. Fuck, yeah, that totally just occurred to me where someone might say something in the comments that like spoils a part of the game. I just won't you know what? Strike back what I said. I just won't read comments until I'm done the game. Problem solved. I won't even put it on you guys. It's on me. It's my problem to not read the comments until I'm done the game. Problem solved. Disregard what I said previously. Edit that out. Let's continue. Anyways, so also just a side note, extra flanges do tend to be much longer videos than daily flanges, so this could run on for a while, just so you're prepared. Anyways, so where was I before I got sidetracked? I kind of forget where I was. So, but okay. We'll go back to shock for shock's sake. So, when they smash him in the head with the golf club, I rolled my fucking eyes. I was like, come on, guys, you're going to be like that about it. And, it doesn't really bug me that much. It doesn't take away from the story that much. But more so what gets me is, when Neil Druckmann puts himself out there as such a high-level writer and all that, then he makes such a cliche, tropish mistake like that. I kind of, yeah, it's a thing for me. Yeah, because, how can he say he's that great of a storyteller when he just falls back to lazy, sloppy, shock for shock's sake plot points? Like, it was so obvious. Like, the way that occurred was just like, oh, how can we shock them so much that they're going to be so upset, and now they're connected with Ellie, and now they're emotionally attached to Ellie's revenge mission. It's like, yeah, you guys can do that, but you can do that so much better. And yeah, that's what I was in the middle of, I think, is so let's run a hypothetical scenario how this could run different. So starts the same as it does pretty much for the most part. Maybe take a little bit more time before we go on that patrol to help establish new characters and reestablish old characters, because that's part of the thing. I don't felt I got enough time to really get to know who Ellie is now, or get to know who Joel is now, or get to know who Tommy is now. And Tommy apparently was married to the woman running the colony. That's kind of important information you don't get until like way later. Although the way they revealed that it was the way they revealed it was good. So maybe that's not the best criticism there, but just in the bigger picture sense, I like just the way they hold things back, and then they bring it up like to shock you, and it's in a clearly intentionally shocking manner that they make these reveals. Is you guys don't got to be like all that all the time. Yes, that works. Yes, that's effective, but maybe balance that out a bit better. And by that I mean, like I was saying, give us a bit more time in the beginning to reestablish old characters and establish new characters so we can actually get more of a feel who they really are. Like, I didn't have much, I kind of got a sense of what kind of person Dina is, but not quite really. And, it's a long game. There's lots of time over the game, but for that foundational establishment to build everything off of, I think it just could have been a bit stronger. And that's the thing, it's not weak. It could have been stronger in a way that would have deflected a lot of criticism. It'd be like, well, your guys' criticisms are just fucking bullshit if we're doing it this properly. That's more where I'm coming from, is if they had done it better, just a lot of the criticisms just wouldn't hold water, like, or not hold water. Bad phrasing, but I hope you all listeners and watchers get what I'm going for there. So that's one aspect, and then with this whole thing with Abby and the WLF people, and I like that they're switching to their perspective, and you actually play as Abby. And you're playing as Abby when you run into Joel and stuff. I think that was really cool, unique, original. I think that was like actually maybe even kind of innovative. It's not too often games have done stuff like that I can recall anyway. I think that was really cool. I think they should have continued that. Instead of killing Joel, I think what it should have happened there is Ellie shows up. Abby doesn't know who the fuck that is, but all she cares about is Joel. So she just like locks Ellie up and is like, I'm not really concerned about you. I only care about Joel. Just leave me the fuck alone. We're taking Joel and we're getting the fuck out of here. And they are being abusive towards Joel. They are going to be beating him and all that kind of stuff. Joel's going to be in rough shape here. So, there's also we're pretty much going along. Most of what happened, I'd say, should remain until they get to the part where, up until more or less it gets revealed who Abby is and Joel is, and maybe even leading up to that could maybe be, more there that adds strength to that foundation. And again, I just got to stress, like, my perspective is adding strength to the foundation of the plot. And I just don't think the foundation of the plot was quite as strong as it could have been. So that's the thing, and I just can't say this enough. I like the game. I respect the game. I think it's a good game. I think it's a very high-level game. I think it's a game that does deserve high ratings, but not 10s. But this flaw is just, it's something serious. So it's just, I just can't say it enough. Even though I'm criticizing this game very specifically and maybe even heavily in some people's opinion, it's from a place of wanting the game to improve. Will this game rewrite its story to try and appease people's criticisms. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Like I said in today's Daily Flange, it just doesn't seem like a practical, plausible business decision. And like I said in the Daily Flange, in terms of the integrity of the art put out there, it's a no choice. Of course, they have to make that correction, but it's also a business, and this is a capitalism, and profits come first. So I don't see it ever happening. So, this is more kind of theoretical in a sense, and more what I'm thinking about is like, to help people understand what actually was wrong with the storytelling and what could be improved. It'll hopefully help improve the meta of storytelling so that it gets it gets away from this kind of shock for shock's sake kind of stuff. So it's like, if you do something shocking, it's well paced, well set up, makes sense, accomplishes what it set out to do, without the audience sniffing it out and being like, oh, you're shocking us into an emotional manipulation so we can move the plot along. And that's, I've already said it, is too obvious that's what they're doing with Joel. And I think that's where the exception came, and how they disrespected Joel is they didn't, not even that they didn't respect Joel's character, they didn't respect their audience's attachment to Joel's character. If we want to get all full out specific, that's the specific problem. It's not even disrespecting the character or the audience, it's disrespecting the audience's attachment to that character. And when an audience is that attached to a character like that, you can't just smash them in the head with a fucking golf club. You gotta be better about it. And the real failing there is they didn't show Joel's strength. Joel's a very fucking strong person, and all of a sudden he's just fucking weak as shit. Just out of nowhere. Strong motherfucker, gets out of all sorts of crazy shit, survived all sorts of insanity, and then that's how he goes out? I can't help but be kind of like, what the fuck? Joel's better than that. Not the best phrasing there, but Joel's a stronger character than that, and he deserves better than that. He's gotta die. It's the way they flanged up the plot of the first game. I can't even explain why it's just a no questions asked. It's got to happen. I wish I could explain that better, but to me it's like no questions asked. Joel must die. He can't survive as a character, otherwise it'll be too weird for the story. Like, we've already done Joel. We've already done Ellie and Joel. We need something different. Otherwise, it's just too much of the same thing. There's more to it than that, but I think one of the biggest points why we can't have Joel as a character for, Joel must die is we can't have more Joel. We already experienced Joel, and we need something different. Otherwise, it's just kind of redundant. But, we got to deal with Joel's character, and we got to do it in such a way that it makes sense for the story. Another thing, I'm not quite finished that previous train of thought, so a little bit jumping around here. Another thing they could have potentially done is just remove Joel from the, roster. Somehow, like, Joel gets infected, has to be quarantined, and then that becomes a whole thing. I mean, he's still going to die in that case, but it's a whole different thing. If he actually catches the infection, and then it's like, oh, Ellie has to figure out, Ellie has to take care of it because that would be her responsibility to help Joel with that. They could have done something like that where he's going to be present to some extent, but then you get to see, like, not just someone go through the full transition, but, maybe someone go through the full transition, be incredibly strong, fight it more than most people fought it, retain some degree of, like, Joel being in there while turning into a runner, and then they wind up, like, kind of keeping him around till he turns into a flicker, which would just be like, oh my god, like, oh, you want to get people's emotions fucking going. Whoa, just thinking about that, I'm like, that would be awesome, but it's like, yeah, oh, crazy story there if they went that direction. So, and that ties into, like, what they could possibly do with the Abby thing. So let's say with Abby, they get Joel, they beat him a bit, they keep him, he's trying to escape, he's being strong Joel, Ellie jumps in there, just bad positioning, outnumbered, but, these people aren't, like, that level of asshole, so Ellie's not what they want. They kind of kick her ass a little bit, lock her up in a room or something and be like, just leave us the fuck alone, we're leaving with Joel. We just don't want to have issues with you because you're not Joel. And then they leave, Ellie chases after him, but then now Ellie's chasing them while they have Joel, which gets super interesting because now, while they have Joel, we can start seeing the WLF perspective and keep up with that thing they started where you wind up playing as Abby and seeing Abby's perspective. So now if they take that path where Joel doesn't get killed right away, and instead of just a straight revenge mission, it's a more nuanced, interesting, okay, attempt to rescue Joel, but he winds up dying on the way to Seattle, or something crazy happens where Joel dies in a way the WLF didn't intend. And now Ellie thinks the WLF did do that purposefully, or doesn't even care, considers the possibility shit got fucked up, they're going to kill him anyways, just that's not what their end game was. And their shit got fucked up because of infected, because everything gets fucked up by infected in this game. So, and then you're chasing the WLF to get Joel back. Then you find Joel's corpse at some point after having played as Abby to see how that all went down. You find Joel's corpse playing as Ellie. Then you're like, oh my god, as Ellie. Now it's a revenge mission, because first it was a rescue. Now it's revenge. And that just seems so much more interesting to me. And then with all that, you get way more possibilities for ethical gray areas and nuances that become interesting things to think about, of like, what is right, what is wrong, where is that line or those lines. If I was in that situation, what would I do? I also think they should be bringing Ellie's immunity. Maybe it does come back into play. More going back to the first game, the only thing, the big thing, kind of in a similar thing but differently, that bugged me about the first, it almost is kind of the same thing, actually, come to think about. But with the first game, with the whole thing with Ellie's immunity, how that played out, I did not like that. Like, I get it, but like, she's fucking immune. I mean, I have a different perspective, though. So my perspective is like, you have an obligation and a duty to make sure you can use that immunity to help others in such a situation. But I might have a more unique perspective than I initially considered when I was like, I don't like how they did that. And it's like, I rescue her from the Fireflies. Absolutely. Because the Fireflies are not the right people doing that. But instead of being like hiding the immunity, and all that, but that's more coming from my perspective and maybe even bias. So anyways, we should get off that. We're more talking about the second game, but I got that feeling from the first game where they played that out that way, just more for a shock factor, more than something that actually made sense. But again, that could just be me. But back to the second one, like, if they had just done how Joel gets killed, or Joel gets murdered, if they had just done that differently, stretched it out so it's more of a thing instead of just this like smash his head in just a gross gratuitous manner. And I'm not one to pull out gratuitous and be like, oh, that was some gratuitous violence. If I'm saying it was gratuitous, that's probably doesn't mean much to anyone considering how new I am. But yeah, I'm not going to call something gratuitous unless it's like really fucking overboard. And the way they murdered Joel was fucking gratuitous. It was just overboard. It was overkill, no pun intended. But they went too far too soon, when I think what would have just been more effective and a stronger story is taking more time to bring that out, giving us more opportunities to understand the villains' motivations and where they're coming from. They don't have to reveal everything right away, but give us some more hints. And just I as much as I do enjoy the game I'm playing, I really think they could have changed how Joel was murdered in various different ways to greatly improve the story. Will they ever make these changes? I don't think so. But I think if these changes were made, there'd be a lot more acceptance of the story. And, as Nate the Hate and MVG were saying in their own podcast, YouTube video there, how the spoilers came out definitely were a factor. There's definitely some spin added to the spoilers, at least from what other people are telling me about them, or not telling me, but other people speak about them without spoiling it. So yeah, that's probably more of a factor than I sometimes give credit. But I think of the spoiler, I think of the story where something like I'm describing and the leak still happened, people still would have been more accepting and been like, oh, that's interesting how they're playing that out. So you get to see the villain's perspective. Joel eventually dies, but you get to see the villain's perspective up until Joel's death. And then because Joel's out of there, no more villain perspective. Because the villain perspective is almost like a thing you only get because Joel's running with them. Or not running with them, but been captured by them. And yeah, it's just I as soon as I played that section, I had a moment where I was like, at first I was like, oh, you guys really did that like that. And then I had a moment where I was like, okay, I get why people would be upset at this story now. They didn't go about this the right way. They tried to emotionally shock us and set up a strong emotional motivation for Ellie, and it is just too obvious. It was too transparent. It was, I guess, too on the nose, maybe is a way to phrase it. But like, we sniffed it out. That's the thing, is we sniffed out what trick they were playing. And when it comes to storytelling, you sniff out a trick, it doesn't work for most audience. And with a lot of storytelling stuff, all these little tricks they play to get audiences feeling the way they want them to, most of those tricks don't work when the audience knows what's going on, because how to put that? Yeah, so so with something like that, it's like it's almost like the audience is a mark, and the writer is almost like not the best metaphor, but it'll work. It's almost like the audience is a mark, and the writer's kind of like a scam artist. Analogy, metaphor, don't take this literally. So there's a thing with that where if the mark sniffs it out, the scam's ruined. Like, the scam ain't happening if the mark sniffs it out. Same kind of idea, probably not the best example, but it's what came to mind, oddly enough. Oh, it's only something I've been interested in to make sure I don't get scammed, so don't take that the wrong way. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. Like, to just sum it up in one thing, is the audience sniffed out the trick and it ruined the trick. And if they had gone about it differently, in a more extended, more subtle, more well-paced, less obvious manner, and there's all sorts of ways they could have done that, it just would have worked better. And again, it's not Joel being murdered, it's how they went about it was just like I said before, Joel is too strong a character for how he got murdered to go down like that, and audiences are going to know that. And they might not be able to always be able to be very good at expressing that, because they just don't have the storytelling linguistics and education to express those feelings very coherently. And that's kind of why we get all these crazy emotional reactions, or at least a large part of the reason is because people they feel bad about it. And I think I already said this. They feel bad about what they saw and they don't like it, but they don't understand what it is that caused those negative feelings connected to that part of the story. And then it's a human emotional thinking thing. Out of emotional thinking, they'll wind up connecting it to a bias or something like that, and then it turns into just something that it's not, and we wind up with like a toxic dichotomy that's hard to have proper discussions in. So I'm sure when I do get around to reading the comments when I'm done the game, there are going to be some very interesting and special comments mixed with some like very good, well thought out comments. It'll probably be an interesting mix. And yeah, let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know why. Either way, how do you think they could have written the story better? Do you think it's fine as it is? The video itself is a, spoiler alert video, so, and I've already said I'm going to ignore comments until I beat the game, so I don't get spoiled, so yeah, don't worry about that. Just say whatever you want to say. where this only accounts for me where I'm at. So this is only for me on my channel on this video. I just gotta be specific. It's okay to put spoilers in the comments because you won't spoil it for me, and the video title should indicate to people that there's spoilers about. The game's still fresh enough. I'd give it another week or two before just being more open about talking about spoiler stuff. Just to give people who are a little bit late getting to the game a chance to play it. But yeah, I'm really interested what other people think and what other people have to say about this. You know, especially because there's not necessarily this kind of thinking of or knowledge, linguistics, whatever about storytelling is, you know, kind of people who do writing are more in touch with this kind of stuff. So most people who are gamers or just more into the tech side or don't, you know, aren't interested in being a writer or storyteller just might not be so in touch with these things. So I'm kind of curious how much I'll wind up with people listening to this and be like, oh shit, that's he put words to the thing in my mind I had trouble putting words to. Maybe I won't, but if that's what I accomplish, I'll consider this video a success. Even if just a handful of people watch this video and they're like, shit, he put into words that thing I had in my mind about what was bugging me, and he put into words the thing that I couldn't, that was bugging me. If only a handful of people come away from this video with that, that's amazing. So if you do have that experience watching this video and you're like, shit, he really put into words the thing I couldn't, please let me know. Because if I'm having that kind of success, I'd like to know just so I can like know I'm doing some things right. That'd be awesome. And yeah, let me know if you like this video. It is a longer one, but it is an extra flange. If you didn't like it, except for if you didn't like it because it was long, the extra flanges are going to be long. So, but anyways, if you didn't like it, give me that thumbs down and let me know what I can do to improve and, you know, some constructive criticism and feedback. If you do offer constructive criticism and feedback, please try and be a bit specific if you can. It's just hard to take action on vague criticism and advice. The specificity really helps being able to take action on criticisms and advice. Yeah, new streaming schedule, Monday to Friday, 5:30 to 8:30. And just because this video has gone on as long as it has, I don't want to go on too much longer. So we are quickly going to thank our Patreon supporters and our super special thanks to the Valve Index GoFundMe donors. Just, yeah, being able to now be a VR content creator would not be possible without you guys. I can't thank you guys enough. Just much respect to you all out there. Oh yeah, the Valve Index GoFundMe is still open. I'll leave it open for a bit longer, but not necessarily too much longer. So if you want to help out with recovering from that very large expenditure, that would really help out and go a long ways. Much appreciated. Much thanks if you do. Yeah. Having a brain fart, haven't even eaten, been a crazy day, building managers being ridiculous about silly stuff again. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I'll talk about that one on stream. Anyways, I think that about wraps it up. As always, remember to bring a towel and have a good one. Bye. One of these, I can't get my shit together on this outro fucking flange, can I now? One of these days I'll get it done smoothly, but my brain just like, just falls apart when it's like outro time. What hotkeys do I press?